Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon all of you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, greetings to all of you, dear friends, dear colleagues, dear brothers and sisters. We are participating today in Washington, D.C. conference about towards sustainable peace and democracy in Yemen. So allow me to welcome you all and all protocols observed. I would like to thank Georgetown University, especially the Center of the Arab Studies, and Dawn for partnering with us in organizing this important conference. We meet here today to raise our voices for peace and democracy in Yemen, and to express the suffering of our people who are entering their 9th year of the coup and the devastating war being waged against them internally and externally. We meet today to raise our voices in an appeal to the world to save the Yemenis who have been living without a state for about 8 years, and who suffer from a daily threat to their lives in extremely bad conditions, where the war has claimed tens of thousands of lives, thrown millions of lives into the displacement, and pushed Yemen to famine, embodying the worst humanitarian crisis in the world today. The entire Yemeni people suffer from the coup and the war together. The entire Yemeni people suffer from the militia coup and the war together. Live daily humiliation from the Iranian-backed Houthis militia that turned against the state and committed crimes against humanity and lives, daily terrorism from the war. And Saudi Emirati tutelage and occupation that declared war on Yemen under the false pretext of restoring the legitimate government, whereas it caused massive destruction and added more militias to the already existing militias, and went far in fragmenting and tearing the country apart. This is the real agenda of the Saudi Emirati coalition war in Yemen. I regret to say that continuing the present approaches to the Yemeni file by the United Nations and the major powers makes peace unattainable. The error of the international approach to the Yemeni crisis is available. The error of the international effort of the error of the international approach to the Yemeni crisis is visible. Any observer of the efforts of the international community, the major countries, and the UN effort during the years of war can come to a simple conclusion that the essence of this trend is in the direction of leaving Yemen entirely to the Houthi militia on the one hand and the Saudi Emirati coalition in the other. The result is that the major powers, the United States and Britain in particular, and Western governments and international community have implicitly or explicitly supported the continuation of Saudi Arabia and UAE in the war on Yemen. Its destruction, the occupation of Yemeni land and ports and airports, etc., and its fragmentation in that horrific way, and the continuation of the Iranian-backed Houthi coup at the same time. This is unacceptable and incomprehensive support for keeping the Yemeni people under the mill of war, coup, tutelage, occupation, death, siege, destruction, the collapse of the service, suspension of salaries, the spread of famine, oppression, and humiliation, under which Yemeni cities and their militia-ruled populations suffer, from Sana'a to Aden, and most cities and population centers in cities and rural areas. So the war in Yemen must stop. The war in Yemen must stop, and we must put an end to this ugly war. This tragedy, this bloody militia coup, this disastrous war, and the war criminals. But the question is, how will this war end? How will we build sustainable peace and democracy in Yemen? It is important to define, when we answer this question, it's important to define the concept of ending the war. Very important to define that. The conception of the end of the war. And what are the conditions when we say that the war is over in Yemen and that we have to start with the challenges of the next step or next day. Defining the concept of ending the war is very important so that those who tampered with and violated Yemen during the 8 years of war do not surprise us with agreements dressed as peace and prepared by the conflicting external forces and their hands tools in Yemen, their proxies at home, through which they complete the achievement of their goals of the war and legitimize the division of Yemen and the status of militia states as a fait accompli. The Iran-backed Houthi militia, which started the war, turned against the state, will not end the war except after imposing its control by force and imposing its complete dominance over the country's resources, wealth, and educational and judicial system, and subjecting society to its supremacist, racist ideology. Houthi is a movement that doesn't show any flexibility to accept a political settlement in which it is a component with the components and political group that recognizes the states as a reference for all of the forces of society. For Saudi Arabia and UAE war, they define ending the war as, if it can reflect their management of the Yemeni war. They define it in agreement that bless their occupation and tutelage over Yemen, where there is no state, let alone its interests in plundering Yemen's wealth and controlling Yemen's geostrategic position of great importance. They want to divide Yemen to achieve their goals. So all the clauses we have reviewed do not end the war in Yemen. Rather, they provide it with more fuel and prolong its tragedy. The war doesn't end in Yemen with deals between the internal warlords and the occupying and external tutelage countries. What a closer to the war in Yemen. if it was torn apart into many states run by militias affiliated with Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Emirates. What a closer of the war. If we go to agreements that legitimize chaos and acknowledge the statelessness and the end of the republic and unity and the outcomes of the National Dialogue Conference, the draft constitution, and the project of the federal state and region. These questions are neither a luxury nor adherence to the war. We are the first one who reject this war and this militia coup at the same time. Continuing the guardianship, the tutelage over Yemen is a continuous declaration of war. Keeping the militias as many states within the state is a war. No sane person can deny that. We believe that war in Yemen will end with the restoration of the hijacked Yemeni decision in Riyadh, in Abu Dhabi, and Iran. The war will end with the integrity of Yemen, the war will end with the integrity of Yemen, not with its fragmentation. The war will end with the restoration of the state of the Republic of Yemen, which has complete sovereignty and authority over all of Yemeni territory, from Sa'da to Al-Mahra, from Sana'a to Sayoun, from Suqatra to Aden, from Bab al-Mandab to every inch in Yemen. Any peace agreement must not harm the unity of Yemeni state or surrender its sovereignty. Likewise, any peace agreement should lead to the cessation of the warlords' intervention, the disarmament of militia, and end to division and the multiplicity of de facto authorities, and an end to daily violence exercised against the civilians, clearing mines, releasing detainees, and lifting the internal and external siege, and ending all forms of Saudi and UAE occupation and hegemony in Yemen. To build, it's very important also, to build an inclusive Yemeni government in which all Yemenis participate and which is responsible for withdrawing militia weapons, moving forward with a referendum on the draft constitution and holding various elections based on the constitution, and to a transitional justice that will do justice to the victims and ensure no recurrence. Respecting Yemen as an independent one, unified and sovereign state, compensating Yemen from all the damage that happened and rebuild Yemen. This is the only path that will lead us to sustainable peace and democracy in Yemen. Otherwise, it's nothing but a prolongation of the war and an increase in people's suffering. Finally, we realize how great our suffering is. And we realize that one of the most important reasons for its continuation is the lack of the national authority that considers their interests of the Yemeni, over of the Yemeni interests. We realize that there is abandonment by some of them and greed among others, but as you know, and anyone knows, Yemen, that Yemen is used to making great surprise. We are confident about our people. We are confident about Yemeni people. all we ask is to be with the Yemeni people and to be with them in their faith for democracy, peace, and freedom. We will turn the page of war and start a new history, which those foreigners, those countries that laid the counter-revolution, that they see yet far, but we see it very soon. I can almost hear that call from every Yemeni. The Yemeni people are not broken, and Yemen is hard to swallow. Thank you so much. Here, let me first thank the Department of State of America for supporting us also in organizing this conference, and also thank the U.S. envoy to Yemen that he is with us now. So allow me here to introduce the American envoy to Yemen. We would like Mr. Tim Linderking to hear from you your vision on how the war can be ended and what is the ways to establish sustainable peace and democracy in Yemen. Welcome, Mr. Linderking, and the floor is yours. Thank you so much.